David Breuer, Director of Co-Edition Publishing at Quarto. Welcome to the London Book Fair podcast.
Hello.
Now, you've spent quite a long time, quite a chunk of your life, in fact, at the Royal Academy and at the Royal Pavilion in Brighton. Rather different programmes to preside over. What brought you into trade publishing 18 months ago?
Why I came here? Well, it was the sort of time to try something completely new and see if it really was completely new. And it was time to turn myself inside out. And it seemed appropriate to try and discover sort of new challenges. And it was the right time. And in fact, it's not so different because my sort of expertise and speciality and success, I guess, over the last 15 or 20 years has been making commercially appropriate use out of creative ideas and creative people and trying to make some value out of that, which is an increasingly difficult thing to do, but it's precisely what's done at Quarto.
But the scale is very different here. I mean, it's the world's largest book packager, isn't it?
The scale is almost smaller in a way because each project is absolutely discrete and self-contained and has exactly the same attention to detail as every other project. Quarto and arts publishing are similar in that they create and own their own ideas. So they create their own packages and present them out rather than are asked to do so. So the aesthetics are kind of similar. You're creating something out of something else that's fit for purpose.
I mean, Quarto's a bit like an iceberg, isn't it? I mean, most of what you do is hidden. There's this little face to the trade and probably an even smaller face to the public. But in fact, a huge range of books, from fine art books, from hobbies to health, to supplemental course books for children, all kinds of stuff. And of course, the 1001 Things to Do Before You Die franchise, which has turned into a very big deal for you, isn't it?
It's a big deal.
Talk about the programme. I mean, you got Francis Lincoln as your latest edition, I suppose, as well.
We got Francis Lincoln. We bought that last August, and also we bought a company called Cool Springs around about the same time, which is a gardening company in Tennessee. The publisher specialises in horticulture and gardening books, and it's sort of symptomatic of the way we work in general, and that is to locate specialist publishing imprints and companies that have a defined marketplace and a professionalism and reputation in that marketplace, and we're always on the lookout for.
But you're much more long-term in your outlook than most trade publishers, aren't you? Who are incredibly short-term, in fact, aren't they? Very seasonal almost. Well,
we're a mixture. I mean, most of our business now is publishing. We are a co-edition publisher, but most of our business in America is as publishers rather than co-edition publishers. So we see the benefits of being a front-list driven operation, and we see the benefits of being a backlist driven operation, and we try and sort of meld those two for appropriate markets. So if we're producing practical books on sort of how to rewire your house, then as long as the wiring system remains constant or you update it to reflect the wiring system that is appropriate at the time, then that book should exist as long as people want to rewire their house.
Where do you generate your ideas from? I mean, do they come from the very creative teams you have in-house, or do agents come to you a bit more?
Our ideas are all generated by ourselves. We own them, we create them, we massage them, we make them for the right sort of markets.
Quarto launched in 1976, Lawrence Orbach's baby.
Yeah.
It still is, I suppose, largely. Pretty soon it found itself, as did the rest of the country, in a recession. There have been many recessions since, of course, and we're now stuck in a sort of no man's land with no obvious route out. Are you better poised to weather recessionary storms than some fund-list trade publishers, do you think?
I don't know if we're any better served or placed to do so. We have certain strengths. Which is the longevity of the list and the strength of the backlist, and its continuing viability for various niche markets. But we are, at one remove, even more vulnerable than any other publisher in that we have to rely on the success of the publishers we're selling to find the right route to market.
Yes.
So we can't directly influence that ourselves or create it ourselves. We have to be even more picky and careful about how we deal with publishers. And in some cases that means encouraging them not to buy quite as much as they think they want to.
Yes.
Because we need to protect our position in the marketplace, and also we need to protect the reprintability, if you like, of our books and make sure that they have the right quantities for the right markets. So we're as vulnerable, but in different ways.
Apart from the economic situation and the crisis on the high street and all those other crises that preoccupy us, the big issue is digital publishing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I suppose. It's an issue.
But digital publishing, in the sense of books, we're not quite there yet, are we? We don't have the right platform.
No.
How is that going to change, and when is it going to change, do you think? I suppose if you knew, you'd...
Well, look, I'm not a soothsayer, and I can't read any future. But what I do know is that the Quarto Group, since it owns its stuff, it creates it, it owns the ideas, it owns the concept, it owns the presentation, it owns the package in every sense, is in a better position to make use of that ownership and that content than most other people, because it can reconfigure it in any way it wants.
So are you developing apps specifically at the moment?
No.
You're not?
No.
So are you waiting for the moment when illustrated digital publishing becomes
To me, we're not necessarily an illustrated book publisher. We're a publisher of books which have illustrative content, but the illustrative content is a perfect match for the textual content. There's a balance there.
Yes.
That one is a necessary adjunct
what I mean
of
is
the
you're
other.
not publishing fiction, which obviously is a natural.
No, we're not
read
publishing
on
fiction,
Kindle or
but Aurum, another of our companies, is producing a lot of narrative non-fiction, which is being produced in digital formats, as are a number of our US publishing houses. And they find, a lot of things sell reasonably well. It's a relatively small area of our business, but it's a growing area. We, in having that stuff available, owning it, can produce it digitally for anyone who wants it. So we can make, and we have done already, we've done sort of 1001 things to see before you die as e-books, which are very complicated and very expensive things to produce as e-books. But it's for the publisher that we have sold the idea to, sold that particular territorial right to decide whether they want to license that right territorially in e-format as well. But as you know, the leap between old and new technology, just as the leap between people downloading CDs or converting vinyl to CD to a virtual cloud seems incredibly clumsy and cack-handed at the moment, so the change from P-book to e-book is incredibly clumsy and strikes one even in the moment of activating it as wrong, as being a historical sort of malfunction. It's a sort of pimple on the linear process. It's not matched yet. Technology is not matching the means to achieve that technology yet.
So the high street then, and book selling, you're as worried about it as every other publisher, of course.
Yeah, I know it's a fragmented market. It's really kind of disappointing that there doesn't seem to be a useful way of doing mainstream book selling anymore on the high street. But it's also quite exciting, I think, that there are different kinds of routes to market for different kinds of niche publishers, and they're finding their own market, and they're finding sort of their own intellectual avenue for their products that are somehow bypassing the mainstream. But there are lots and lots of independents that are servicing that. For a group like Quarto, the problem is that it needs some kind of mass take-up of printed product in order to trigger the production of its books. And if that market doesn't exist in the real bookstores, or is shrinking in terms of shelf space on real bookstores, then that sort of prescribes the sort of areas we can find the right sort of routes to market for. That doesn't mean to say that if you're a specialist publisher, when I was really starting to read books, sort of voraciously, there were maybe 2 or 3 high literary publishers in this country. There was maybe John Calder and Peter Owen, and a couple of others that you could trust, and they were the only ones. Now there are probably about 10 publishers just in Notting Hill that are producing lots and lots of very sort of specialised books that are perfect books for people who are fascinated, enthusiastic, interested in books, interested in literature, interested in finding a small market and feeding that market. And those routes exist for more and more people these days. And it's through independent bookstores, it's through talking to them, through literary festivals, through blogs, through websites, through all sorts of different avenues that mean that you have to work harder in order to get to an audience, but the audience exists and more people are around to feed that audience. And I think that's incredibly exciting. What we have to do as a larger organisation is to adopt the quick thinking of the people who are slightly smaller than us. And that means we've got to keep relatively small imprints that specialise and know their markets very, very well, talk directly to our customers, but above all, keep enthusing about presenting information in a very, very innovative way. And that way we find the right sort of markets and we talk to publishers and enthuse them about finding their markets as well. And I don't think it's terminal at all. I think it's actually quite invigorating, this sort of atmosphere, because I find more and more people knowing and hungry to know more about more and more things. And it's less divisive as an industry now. So, you know, it's good.
David Breuer, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.